Hello and welcome back to season 2 of An Uncertain Future. Today with part 6, it's gonna be a longer part again. I hope you will like it. Enjoy! Akaashi's phone was ringing on his desk, and it earned him a few knowing looks from his co-workers as Bokuta's name appeared on the display. He ignored it and accepted the call. Hey, Kiji! A small smile crept on his face without his consent, perhaps without him even noticing. Kotaro, I'm still at work. Is it important? Just wanted to ask when you'll be finished. Practice just ended and I was wondering if I should pick you up. The black-haired's gaze wandered over to the clock on the wall before swiftly assessing the stack of papers on the table. I'll finish up real quick and can meet you by the entrance in 15 minutes. How does that sound? Perfect! See you soon, love! A subtle blush crept up Akaashi's cheeks and he said his goodbyes and got back to organizing his desk. You're going home early? His co-worker, a beta and not a particularly sympathetic one, asked as he observed him closely. Not really. I was here early. He tried to converse with him as little as possible and ignored him for the most part. It got a lot easier since his boss allowed him to work from home. She was an older woman, and not fond of the idea at first. However, after Akaashi proved that he could be just as reliable as before, she agreed and continued to have his back ever since. It didn't exactly put him in a favorable position with people like Watanabe-san, who was already annoyed that Omegas and Alphas had heat and Rutley from work. He huffed at Akaashi's statement, but didn't push it further. Oh, Akaashi-san, leaving already? Namori walked by, a file in hand, and smiling at him friendly. She was fairly new in the business, but an alpha, which meant Watanabe didn't like her from the get-go. Yet, since she was an alpha and not an omega, he was a lot more subtle about it. Yeah, his mate picks him up. Namori's eyes lit up in recognition. The volleyball player? What was his name again? Despite her actually talking to Akaashi, Watanabe answered again. Kotaro. Right, I think I saw one of his games recently. Oh well, I guess it's been a while ago. He plays in the team with that really short red-headed Omega, right? Akaashi smiled as he listened to her description of the energetic spiker. He could perfectly picture Hinata's pout if he'd hear it too. Yeah, that would be Hinata Shoyo. My mate is good friends with him. Well, they both are. Oh, you have two mates? How lovely! Nuh-uh, not two. 3. And they are all crazy successful. We have the volleyball ace, Kozume is the CEO of his own company, and Kuro does some well-paying marketing job or whatever. Akaashi rolled his eyes at that and tried his best to ignore him. Isn't Akaashi a lucky guy? The way he said it, it didn't sound lucky at all. Sometimes you wonder how he keeps mates like that. Namori laughed nervously and tried in vain to salvage the situation. Oh, I'm pretty sure such a handsome fella as you doesn't have any problems with the alphas. Just look at him, Watanabe-kun. She playfully gestured toward the Omega, who gave her a small nod simply to show that he appreciated the attempt. There wasn't much more he could do, and it wasn't like he wasn't used to this. Oh, of course, Omegas and their looks. It's really the only thing they have going for themselves. Better look out, Akaashi, for that weight, otherwise you might lose them. At that, Namori didn't even try to save the situation with an awkward laugh and just frowned, her eyes narrowing in poorly hidden disgust. Watanabe didn't even seem to notice. Either he was willfully ignorant or plain stupid, since he had the audacity to look at Namori as though they were of the same opinion, and her rejection was aimed at Akaashi rather than himself. She sighed and shook her head. Do you need help with any of this? It earned her another huff from the beta, and something that sounded suspiciously a lot like using his Omega charms again. Pathetic. This time, she straight up glared at Watanabe's back since he had turned around already. Usually, Akaashi would have denied, even though he knew, of course, that attempting to change Watanabe's opinion was a fruitless endeavor. He didn't need to put fuel on it, though. But he could see in her eyes that she still wanted to speak to him, so he nodded and let her accompany him to the elevator. I'm so sorry about what just happened. I wouldn't have said anything if I knew he would be such a jerk about it. You couldn't have known. You're new, and even if, it's his problem, and his alone, so really there's nothing you need to apologize for. I still feel bad though. She sighed. I know, but if it helps, you don't have to. I don't blame you. He gave her one of these rare smiles. It wasn't quite as bright as the ones his mates coaxed out of him when they called, but from the usually stoic and indifferent Omega, it was still the biggest compliment, or in this case reassurance, he could offer. Namori blinked, surprised, before reciprocating the gesture, much more expressive and warmly, giving a slight bow in his direction as the doors of the elevator shut close. She was nice. Akaashi felt like they would get along well in the future. Outside, Bokuto awaited him already, greeting him with his typical enthusiasm and a wide grin plastered on his face. Akaashi didn't even protest when the ace wrapped his arms around him. Usually, PDA wasn't really his thing, but right now it just felt good to let himself fall into his arms and push the recent exchange far back into his mind where he could forget about it. Hey, Alpha. He breathed in deeply as he felt Bokuto falter. Gently, his hands wandered to Akaashi's arms, and he looked at him with concern written all over his face. Is everything alright? Akaashi typically only called them by their dynamic when he wanted them to take charge for him after a stressful event. He looked tired, and Bokuto immediately searched their bond for any sign of distress. Akaashi laughed. It was a bright, clear sound born from appreciation and love. I'm fine, Kautaro. I had a bit of stress at work, but now I'm fine. He hugged Bokuto again, breathing in a scent. Perfect even. With one last kiss to his head, Bokuto separated them again and led the Omega to their car before driving them home. They held hands between the seats and Akaashi closed his eyes, for the time being, enjoying the pleasant calm. It wasn't silent. With Bokuto, it never was. He tapped on the steering wheel, made weird sounds, or commented on his surroundings without actual thought behind it or expecting an answer. It wasn't silent, but it was peaceful, familiar. By the time they'd arrived in front of the door, Akaashi had almost completely forgotten about the stress at work, and the rest was knocked out of his head by a sudden wave of distress washing over him. He stiffened and halted mid-step. Bokuto behind him did the same. After collecting his thoughts, he felt for their bond, for any sign of stress or anxiety from the other two, but all he found was Bokuto's worry. His connection to Kuro was dulled, yet still there, and calm as the water of an abandoned lake. Kenma was similar, but more intense, and he could sense his concentration. It made sense when he saw him deeply immersed in a video game with Kuro sleeping on the couch beside him. What didn't make sense, however, was the still lingering scent of distress in the air. A few seconds passed until the gamer noticed them, motioning that he needed 2 more minutes before he could talk. Akaashi nodded and slowly took the time to calm his racing heart. He walked over to the couch and leaned over the back to watch Kenma play, while Bokuto's patience was wearing a little thin. The alpha observed them, trying his best to stay calm, and failed completely. It was terribly endearing. Akaashi and Kenma both looked at him, slightly amused, before the smaller lowered his game and nervously avoided looking them in the eyes. Kenma, what happened? Akaashi carefully leaned closer while leaving him space to decide whether he wanted the touch or not. I dropped. It was a whisper more than anything, yet so impactful. Akaashi and Bokuto froze on the spot, and if they weren't mistaken, their hearts did too, as ice-cold panic dripped into them, paralyzing them and filling them with a numb yet burning anxiety. For a moment, the room filled with suspenseful silence, and Kenma felt as though he could hear his own heartbeat. Akaashi next to him tried in vain to calm himself and remain in control by taking a deep breath, while Bokuto was by his side in seconds, searching him for any harm that might have been done. What happened? Are you okay? Is Tetsu... I'm fine. He said it more rudely than anticipated. Immediately his expression turned apologetic, but before he could act on it, Akaashi interfered. Alright, so you're okay now? He nodded. When did the drop happen? A few hours ago. This was good. This was easy. Kenma could work with questions like this. Has Tetsu brought you to a clinic when it happened? At that, Kenma frowned, looking very dissatisfied with the question. No, it wasn't necessary. He could manage. Okay, but I still think we should make an appointment, just to make sure. Just, please don't... He didn't know how to say this or what exactly he was asking for. Tetsu was mad at himself for not guiding me there immediately. I don't want him to feel guilty. I'm fine now. Akaashi nodded in understanding while Bokuto clenched his jaw. He should have. He should have gotten you to a clinic right away. What if something worse happened? But it didn't. Kenma, you could have lost the baby. At that, the Omega flinched and his eyes widened. He suddenly grew quiet and looked down again. What happened, Kenma? Can Kuro tell you? Please. I can't right now. They both looked at him worried, and Bokuto reached a hand out, but Kenma flinched away. The pain and confusion was visible on the alpha's face. That's okay. Rest for now. I'll go to the nest for the time being. Should I accompany you? No. He left without another word, or so much as a gaze in that direction. Akaashi didn't need the bond to know how rejected Bokuto felt, and before he could start to overthink it, his arms were wrapped tightly around the taller. Hey, it's okay. A slight shiver rippled through the ace's body and he gulped. He knew that he was fighting tears. His breathing came in increasingly shorter breaths and his muscles tensed. Bokuto couldn't deal well with rejection. His mood swings, particularly in high school, were just one indicator of that, but Akaashi knew that it ran much deeper and that it got worse the more he respected and cared about a person. Kenma was his Omega, his mate just like him. Getting rejected by them was Bokuto's worst nightmare. When he left, it was bad already, but this time, despite being here, Kenma flinched away from his touch, and it felt personal, and Bokuto couldn't deal with that. Ko, it's okay. He loves you. It's okay. The alpha didn't answer, but allowed Akaashi to guide him to sit down. He pulled the smaller into his arms and held on tight. The Omega carefully scented and coaxed him to relax by rubbing calming pheromones into his skin. He could feel the first tears falling and heard the muffled sobs as he just held him, whispering soothing promises and sweet nothings to him. When Kuro woke up, Bokuto had mostly calmed down again, staring into nothing and absent-mindedly patting Akaashi's back. The younger alpha immediately searched for Kenma when he couldn't find him the moment he woke up and was about to work himself into a frenzy when... He's upstairs in the nest. Surprised, Kuro looked at them, trying to puzzle everything together. His eyes fell on Bokuto's tear-stained face and he frowned in worry. What happened? Why is no one with Kenma? He dropped. Someone should... We know. He asked us not to come with him. No. He just rejected it when I asked. Bokuto's voice was a bit hoarse and he sounded almost distant. Realization flashed over Kuro's face and he let himself fall onto the couch again with a sigh. Did he tell you why he dropped? No, he asked us to wait till you could explain. The alpha nodded slowly and tried to organize his thoughts. He had a nightmare about miscarrying, and apparently in his dream we were pretty mad at him for it. When he woke up and no one was there to reassure him, he dropped. We need to be a lot more careful now. The room grew eerily silent until a sob tore through it. I messed up. Bokuto started shaking a little again, feeling more guilty than ever. Confused, the black-haired alpha stood up to comfort him as well, but faltered as he continued. I told him that this was serious, that he could have lost the baby, and he must think that I'm like that I'd be mad if, that I care less about him than... He couldn't say it or continue as his voice suddenly broke. Akaashi turned in his arms again to hug him, while Kuro put his arms around the both of them in a big embrace. It's not your fault. You couldn't know. You were right after all. It was dangerous. Akaashi nodded and added quickly, Kenma isn't feeling well right now. He's anxious. That's why I caught him off guard. But he knows you care. He knows, and he will believe you if you tell him. Exactly. Kuro rested his head on Bokuto's and gently caressed his sides and arm. The tall alpha lifted his head slightly to look at him. Can you send me, please? Of course. He wasted no time applying the earthy scent of pine wood and cedar. It had a note of resin in it, and Bokuto could hardly imagine something more calming than the way it mixed with the lilac. Thank you so much for watching to the end. I hope you liked it. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. It would really help me out a ton, really. Thank you so much for everyone who's still watching this series. I love you all so much. Check out the Discord. It is linked in the channel description. I would love to see you there. And tell me what your favorite quote of this video in particular was under the pinned comment. Next part is gonna be up very soon. A special thanks as always goes out to my nerdy neckos. You help me so much keep this channel going and just uploading weekly. We have 2 new nerdy neckos just recently joined. Thank you so much for doing that. If you also want to become a Nerd Neko and you are not yet, check out the join button under this video. Or look at more of these videos. The algorithm really loves when it does that, do that. Yeah, I heard they're supposed to be pretty good. And now I hope you have fun for an amazing day. Bye!
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.